Alright everyone, so today I wanted to talk about what makes it worth taking an artifact to plus 16, and I wanted to really talk about all the different reasons because there's certain common ones like speed, 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 which I think a lot of people know, but the thing is, it's not going to be the only determining factor of what artifacts are worth taking to plus 16 or not, and in a lot of cases, you're not just going to be able to get the maximum amount of speed rolls on all your gear. That's just not going to be realistic. Even endgame players really struggle with getting as much speed as they possibly can on your gear, and that's a super end game goal. There's so many other good things that you want to really look for on artifacts, and you don't want to just throw away artifacts just because you don't get 4 speed rolls, because that's going to happen all the time. You want to still make sure that you're keeping your best artifacts, you're using your best artifacts, and you're taking artifacts to plus 16 that are worth it and not leveling artifacts that are a waste of silver. So let's talk about many of those different reasons, and let's start off here with number 1, and that is making sure that you're going to be able to use the artifact and make sure that you're going to be able to put it to its best use possible. And what I mean by that is generally you want to work on plus 16 your artifacts that are a part of commonly used sets that you use on multiple champions, and obviously the speed set falls in that category. This is probably going to be the most used and most desired set out there, but there are plenty of other sets that are really good that you're still going to use on multiple different champions, and you're going to want to really prioritize artifacts among those sets compared to working on a lot of artifacts that are a part of very obscure sets that you just don't really see get a whole lot of use. I'm talking about the sets like Fury, for example. It's just you never really build Fury artifacts just for the actual set effect. Now, there is an exception, and if you do end up getting an ungodly good artifact that has extremely, extremely good rolls, and it's just working out perfectly for you as you rank it up to plus 16, go for it. You can end up using it on a champion, and even though you might not have the full effect and it might not be the best set, you could still end up breaking your sets and using artifacts outside of the most popular sets if they roll really, really well. And I emphasize that major point that I just brought up. You might have missed it, so I'll go ahead and say it again. And it's probably important to note that a lot of the artifacts that you'll see here that are distributed among my storage, you'll see them all in levels in increments of 4. They'll either be plus 4, plus 8, plus 12, or plus 16. What you don't want to do when it comes to leveling any artifacts up to plus 16 is you never want to just go from plus 0 all the way up to plus 16. It's incredibly rare to have an artifact where no matter what substats you roll on, it's going to be okay. It does happen occasionally, but it's very, very rare. You always want to make sure to level it up in increments of 4 and see what substats it got. If it rolled something good, you can continue to work on it. If it rolled something bad, then you can kind of evaluate to see where you're at. Sometimes one bad roll is enough to make the item no good and you have to get rid of it, but sometimes if it's a decent item, even one bad roll, it might still be worth continuing to level it and kind of see where it goes from there. But getting back to the artifacts that are a part of sets that are really good, besides the obvious one that is speed. Now, obviously, all the basic sets that require only 2 pieces are good for 2 different reasons. They're good for number 1, you only actually need 2 pieces in order to complete a set compared to 4. It's a lot easier to end up getting 2 artifacts that are really good compared to having to get 4 artifacts that are really good. And also, just a very simple plus X percent, 15% for most of them, increase to your stats is always going to be beneficial to a champion. Some of the effects might not be good for some champions, but they're going to be really good for others. But the more often you find yourself in that situation, it's just the less amount of champions that you're going to be able to use certain pieces on. Like Lifesteal, for example. Lifesteal is a fantastic artifact set, but there are some champions that just quite simply don't need Lifesteal. They've either got their own healing built into their skill kits, or they just never find themselves in that situation. Even more situationally, as you kind of get down here, there's just a lot of sets where, they can be very, very good, but not all champions are going to need that set in order to function. They're not all going to get benefit from it. Now, a really big highlight here is the 2 sets that you end up getting from the clan boss, and I want to highlight Cruel and Immortal because they are kind of like little upgrades of the basic sets. It's got that heal plus 15%, but it's got a little bonus on there as well, heal by 3% every turn. And then, of course, you've got the Cruel. Attack plus 15, ignores 5% of enemy defense. You're going to end up getting a lot of these. They're better than the basic sets, and these are absolutely going to be two different sets that you can use on a lot of different champions and get the full use out of. Now, another important determining factor when it comes to deciding, do I take this artifact up to plus 16 or not, is that very crucial process of evaluating what happens as you continuously upgrade the artifact. This is probably the most important thing. Obviously, the type of set that it belongs to is important as well, but you have to really take a look at an artifact and see when it is completely unleveled, what stats does it have on it, what of those stats are good, what of those stats are bad, and then when it comes to my bonus rolls, what's going to improve the artifact, what bonus rolls would be good to get versus what's going to make the artifact feel less valuable if it rolls on bad stuff. And this is another reason why so much of my artifact storage is at that plus 4, plus 8, plus 12, or plus 16 level, because a lot of the times, like here, this artifact had a lot of potential. It got crit rate and crit damage, but unfortunately, when I rolled it up to plus 8, the two bonus rolls landed on the two things that I did not want, accuracy and flat HP. Now, if it rolled crit rate and crit damage, I would have continued to level this artifact. Even if just one of those accuracy or one of those HP rolls was crit rate or crit damage instead, I probably would have continued to level it up. So it really is, there's no one simple, pure, plain answer. If it lands on this stat, it's gone, it's terrible. If it doesn't have this stat, it's terrible. It doesn't work like that. It's really mostly about just figuring out what stats are good, what stats are bad, and then really making that decision yourself of, okay, this artifact is not going to be worth taking to a higher level, just keep it where it's at. This artifact is garbage now, I have to sell it. Or it's rolling on good stats. Even if it has one bad stat, it still rolls a lot of good stats, and I'm going to continue to rank it up and get it up to plus 16. Now, I'll give you guys a general guideline here of what is considered to be good stats versus what is considered to be bad stats, but this is just a general guideline here. There's no one super plain answer to what is a good stat besides the obvious exception, which is speed. But the reason I haven't talked a lot about speed in this video is because it's just, you know that if you get a lot of speed on artifacts, it's gonna be good, and it's just not realistic for you to only go for speed. It's not gonna happen unless you are a big whale, you spend a ton of money on artifact packs. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to just only work with going for maximum speed. You have to find a lot of other stuff to work with on your champions. So as a general guideline, speed, crit rate, crit damage are all considered to be very, very good. And when it comes to the HP, attack, and defense, the good version is the percentage one. So percentage HP, attack, and defense. And the one that is not desirable is the flat version. So the flat HP, attack, and defense. Now, accuracy, it kind of depends. I generally don't really like it as much on artifacts because there's so many other ways to get accuracy. If you have a couple of rolls spread across your artifacts, that's totally fine. You're probably going to need that. But I generally don't go out of my way to try to get more accuracy on my artifacts unless they already came with it on it. And the last thing is resistance, and resistance is one of those things where, again, generally it's just not going to be something that you're going to want. I would say most people are going to want to avoid resistance, and it's not going to be good, but there are, of course, certain champions and certain builds that do really, really well with resistance, but it's a very few number of champions. It's a very circumstantial thing, so generally it is going to be one of those things that you are going to want to avoid when it comes to artifacts. But anyway, I've thrown a lot of info in this one video here. I know for some of you guys this might be a bit of an overview, but I really wanted to condense this in a format where I just give as much general info without too many details, too much craziness, and kind of putting it into a nice, easy to explain way, unlike a lot of the other videos that I have about artifacts where it's kind of too chopped up, if that makes sense. So I hope that you guys enjoyed. I hope that this helps out, and if it did and you want more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. Feel free to toss a quick like as well. It means more than you can imagine, so thank you to all of you who decide to do that. And more raid videos should be popping up on the screen right about now, over 350 of them on the channel, so feel free to check them out. More guides, tutorials, and other fun videos just like this. But if not, until next time, take care everyone, and this Assault of the Salty Guild signing out.